Hi there. Today I want to talk about one of the many cognitive biases called the status quo bias. And the reason why I want to talk about this is that recently I saw a video of someone who criticizes one of the recommended charities recommended in the effective altruism movement, the Against Malaria Foundation, claiming that this organization harms people, and his argument clearly revealed a status quo bias. So to begin with, what is the status quo bias? It is actually a belief that the current situation happens to be the one that optimizes the thing that you value. For example, global well-being. And if you believe that the current situation, our current economy, for example, is the one that maximizes global well-being, and if you are not able to give a good justifying reason why this should be the case, then you have a status quo bias. It will become clear in the examples that I will demonstrate, but there is an interesting test to check whether or not you have a status quo bias. It is developed by two famous philosophers, famous in the effective altruism movement, Nick Bostrom and Toby Ord. They developed a reversal test. So they give the example of human cognitive enhancement. Would it be good to, if we would have a technology, to increase our intelligence, to increase the level of our IQ, make us smarter? And then a lot of people say, no, it's not good, because then we become smarter and we will be able to develop more dangerous weapons, and we will be able to use our intelligence to manipulate people and do bad things in politics. So being more intelligent is not good. Okay, then the idea of this reversal test is, what if we do the reverse? What if we would develop and apply a technology that makes us dumber, decrease our intelligence, our IQ? Would that be a good idea? Well, if our intelligence decreases, no, we will no longer be able to develop new drugs, medicines, cure diseases, for example. So that's not good either. And that means that you believe that our current level of intelligence happens to be the one that maximizes the thing that you value, for example, health or well-being. And there is no reason to believe that, because our intelligence is the result of a blind process of natural selection, evolution. There is no reason why our intelligence now should be the one that maximizes well-being. So you can compare this with a map of a mountainous area. Suppose you have a map of a mountainous area and you randomly select a point on this map, a location. Chances are very small that you point at a mountaintop, because the area of mountaintops is very small. If you randomly select a point on the map, it's most likely not a mountaintop. The same if nature randomly selects an IQ level of humans. Chances are very small that this level happens to be the one that maximizes well-being. So that reveals status quo bias. Another example, in a discussion with a conservative people who are against adoption of children by homosexual couples. So they believe that if a child raised up in a family with gay parents, it's bad for the child, bad for the education of the child. So that's not a good idea, they think, but let's do the reversal test. Let's suppose that scientists discover that children raising up in families with homosexual parents, suppose they are better off, those children, that their social skills are better, that they are better to learn, that their intelligence increases or whatever, so that the children in homosexual families are better off. Would this mean then, would you conclude then that it is no longer allowed for heterosexual couples to adopt children? And that's the counter argument. If you're not willing to go to that conclusion, then you have a status quo bias. So now let's look at examples of status quo bias that we discover in effective altruism topics. One of the topics is wild animal suffering. So a few effective altruists are concerned about animal well-being, not only about livestock farming, animal suffering in factory farms, but they are also concerned about animal suffering in nature, wild animal suffering. The question is, should we intervene in nature to improve aggregate animal well-being? And if you look at ecosystems, they have a level of biodiversity, competition, predation. Yeah, so these ecosystems, they have certain levels of predation and competition. Should we, now we know that, yeah, predators, and they kill prey animals, they cause suffering, competition. A lot of animals don't like competing with other animals. So you can say competition and predation are bad, so that we should decrease those levels of predation and competition. Now, environmentalists claim that it's not a good idea to decrease this level of predation, for example. Because if the predators decrease, then there are the prey animals, they can procreate, will no longer die, no longer being hunted, and they will get an overpopulation, and eventually they will die from malnourishment. It's not a lot of food anymore in the ecosystem. So that means that simply decreasing the level of predation would have bad consequences, would not be good for animal well-being. That's the belief of a lot of environmentalists who are against intervention in nature. Now let's do the reversal test. Let's suppose that we increase the level of predation and competition, that we introduce more predators in ecosystems, that we introduce new predator species. Yeah? If you believe that predation is good for well-being, that predators improve global aggregate animal well-being, why not increase the level of predation? And then those people say, no, that's not good either, because more predation causes more suffering, because more prey animals will be killed. Okay, so that means that if you believe that increasing and decreasing the level of predation are not good, then you believe that the current level of predation of an ecosystem happens to be the one that optimizes aggregate well-being of the animals in nature. Now, as we know, competition and predation, they are the results, again, of blind processes of evolution and natural selection. So there's no reason to believe that the current level of predation happens to be one that optimizes well-being. There's no mechanism to explain it. Nature is not focused on optimizing well-being. Nature basically doesn't care about aggregate well-being of the animals in ecosystems. So then you have a status quo bias. If increasing and decreasing level of predation are not good, you have to be able to explain why the current level of predation and competition should be the optimal ones. And most likely you're not able to give a reason, and that means you have status quo bias. So let's conclude with a fourth example of status quo bias, the one in the video that I saw recently. A person criticizing Against Malaria Foundation. That's one of the top charities recommended by effective altruists, made a charity GiveWell. Against Malaria Foundation, they distribute bed nets in local communities to help the children not dying from malaria. Now, the idea is that if Against Malaria Foundation imports bed nets and distributes bed nets for free there, they put local bed network producers out of business. Yeah. So it's not good for the local economy, yeah, because local producers, the local bed net makers, they cannot compete with these imported bed nets, and so they will lose their jobs, and it will disrupt the economy. Now, you can give a lot of counter-arguments to this criticism. First of all, you can say that suppose Against Malaria Foundation no longer uses bed nets, imported bed nets, and only buys bed nets from local producers. That means that now they buy bed nets from producers in Vietnam and Tanzania. If they no longer buy those bed nets, then the people in Tanzania and Vietnam lose their jobs, are out of business. And so you shift the problem to those countries. So that's one counter-argument. But more importantly, this criticism against the Malaria Foundation, it reveals a status quo bias. Because we can, we believe that decreasing diseases through foreign aids, distributing bed nets, for example, decreasing malaria, it's not a good idea for the local economy. Okay, then what about reverse? Would it be a good idea to introduce malaria mosquitoes in poor regions without malaria? Let's suppose, for example, that malaria was locally eradicated by the import and use of bed nets in the past, and there's a region where there's no longer malaria. So local malaria, local bed net producers are out of business. They have to find some other work. Would it be a good idea to introduce malaria in those regions in order to stimulate the local economy by incentivizing local people to start a business and produce and sell bed nets? Would it be a good idea to introduce all kinds of new diseases through foreign aid? New diseases, and to incentivize local people to start businesses to fight those diseases. So you introduce dangerous virus, and you allow the local people to produce a vaccine. And then, okay, local people can produce and sell the vaccines, and apparently it would be good for the economy. Well, no one believes that that's a good idea. So if both introducing new diseases through foreign aid and decreasing diseases through foreign aid are not good, then you have to explain why the current level of diseases, the current level of malaria, for example, happens to be the one that maximizes local economic flourishing, maximizes employment and economic activities. And there's no reason to believe it. The current level of malaria and diseases, that's the result of blind natural processes. The mosquitoes are not concerned about economic flourishing. So there's no reason to believe why the current level happens to be the one, by accident, the one that maximizes economic activities in those regions. So that's clearly an example of status quo bias. And as a result, those examples, they demonstrate that we are often too conservative. We are often irrationally too much against interventions, believing that the current situation is better for the thing that we value, for well-being, for example. So this status quo bias is what I would call a kind of a moral illusion that makes our moral judgments irrational. So it makes the choice of our means, our methods, less effective. Therefore it's important to address the status quo bias as a rational ethicist or as an effective altruist. Okay, see you next time.